So how did you hurt your back?
I went into the city with my brother and my girlfriend on Thursday, and I know we walked around and I carried like some shit that I bought, but that's like the only thing I can think of because I was off the last couple days, and then my back started hurting like Saturday night, and it was kind of fine yesterday, and I woke up today, I'm like, oh fuck, I can't move.
Was it like a Comic-Con size haul bag?
No,
or?
I mean, it was a heavy bag just because like apparently no merchants in the city want to give you a bag. So I went to this really awesome, like independent, anti-imperialist, like socialist bookstore.
Fuck yes. And books are heavy.
Yeah. So I bought one book, a Karl Marx book, and he gave me a bag, right? He had like a Target bag, a paper bag, and I was like, sweet. And then every other place I went to, because we went to Chinatown, so we got like a bunch of vegan food to bring home, and we just like walked around and stuff. And like every store I went to, they just like threw the shit into the bag I already had. So I guess by the end of the day, the bag was getting pretty heavy, you know?
You had a bag of holding.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Or if I were to quote Age of Ultron by the Hollywood's best director and respecter of all actors and actresses, Joss Whedon.
Especially women.
Yes, yeah. If there's anything he loves, it's writing women well and then respecting them just as much as they were his own characters.
I think he probably felt if he wrote them well enough, then he could do whatever he wanted to them. You know, he's like, oh, so what if I fucking abuse women? I write really, really good female characters, so I'm fine.
I mean, I wasn't planning on discussing this, but I mean, now that we're on it though, like that's a pretty good point because there are so many. You know, you talked about who was the Castlevania dude.
Oh, Warren Ellis.
Yeah, neckbeard Warren Ellis. You know, like who also had allegations against him and stuff,
Right.
and you know, I'm sure you know Joss hasn't had like sexual allegations come against him yet.
Just abuse, like
because like listen,
stuff,
folks, few things happen in a vacuum. So if someone's being a dick to you at work, imagine how they're treating people who they don't have to pay, or like you know, or I mean, I know the director doesn't pay the actor,
no,
But yeah, like if you can tell Gal Gadot, you know, like, listen, you have to do this thing, and if not, you'll never work in Hollywood again. Like that takes some balls to tell Wonder Woman.
I mean, he body shamed. Oh gosh, I can't remember her name from Angel.
Oh, Angel actors, right?
Yeah, she was also on Buffy.
Was that? It was Buffy. Okay, that's where I heard.
Well, it wasn't the actress who played Buffy, but she was on Buffy for years.
Yeah.
She played Cordelia, and then she went to Angel as the female lead. But yeah, she was pregnant, and he was just fucking body shaming her, telling her like how disgusting she looked, and like how was like so pissed off that she got pregnant, and like was ruining the show.
He asked if she was going to keep it. Imagine that. Imagine asking anyone. Imagine asking your own partner that, let alone...
Well, imagine you're at work and you're just like, hey, so you gonna keep that? Because it's kind of inconveniencing me right now. Like, what the fuck? Right? Like,
the entitlement of a white, privileged male is a power unbeknownst to many, but it is incredible.
And it does bring up that argument, though, like, can you enjoy... that person's work still, right? Like, can you separate the person from their art? And, I am able to do it, so I can still enjoy some Joss Whedon stuff. I don't think I would support him in the future, just like with Warren Ellis. I thought Castlevania Season 4 was incredible, and most fans would agree. And Warren Ellis is probably one of the best writers in the biz, but the allegations against him and the abuse that he's acted towards women, I wouldn't support him in the future. So I think I can enjoy the stuff he's worked on, but that's where the relationship ends.
Yes, and of course, we forgot to mention in previous podcasts, Ty also is a huge Roman Polanski fan as well. No, I'm kidding. Separating the art only goes so far.
Rosemary's Baby is a great film, but other than that...
That's like it, right? Like, I've never even seen Rosemary's Baby. Like,
what?
It's on my list. I'll do it. It's a horror classic.
Oh my God, yeah, it's so fucking good.
Yeah,
wow.
Like, I don't have the need to go and revisit any Woody Allen movies or, or listen to any Louis C.K. stand-up anymore. He was my favorite, and then he wasn't. So whatever. But like that. Just speaking as like a borderline sociopath, narcissist, if not one, then definitely raised by one, I can tell you firsthand that imaginary characters sometimes mean more to you than real people. And so for him, writing a female character, or that term is so gross to me, writing a woman character, unless she's of like a different species, writing a woman character, I guess makes up for, like, they'll take the imaginary character more seriously than they'll take the person who's playing them.
Right. He's like, I fucking respect the shit out of Buffy, but not Sarah Michelle Gellar, so.
Exactly. But to quote Black Widow from Age of Ultron, if she saw your bag, she would say, "Hey, big guy, bag's getting real low." But that was all of that just to spit in that stupid fucking joke.
Wow. Oh, I did have an epiphany, though. Oh, it may have hurt my back. When we were getting into an Uber at one point, because my brother was determined to go to the Nintendo store. He wanted to go so bad. We took a 45-minute Uber ride to fucking get there because there was so much traffic. That when we were getting into the Uber, a pigeon flew into my brother's head, bounced off his head into my head, right? Then flew, we're like, it flew away. And then I was fucking dazed. I get into the Uber and like, we're a little heavy, so we're like kind of like tight against each other. And I was kind of like bent at an awkward angle. And I feel like that's what happened. I think it was between the pigeon hitting me and the awkward angle in the Uber and holding this big bag. I haven't hurt my back, so.
Was the driver a bodega cat? How much New York can you fucking get? Oh my god! This is what insane. The podcast should be. It should really just be us riffing.
I agree.
But let's get to 100 episodes before we decide.
Yeah,
right.
Oh
yeah, what did you have?
I had one more thing that I did want to bring up. So we did an Israel-Palestine episode last week, right? And I think I stand by what we said. I think we had some really good points in there. Obviously we don't support the genocide of people, of Palestinians by Israel. But I did want to point out a couple things. We did mention how Hamas was, fighting for the freedom of Palestinians, and that is true. But I also don't think I personally did a good job clarifying that Hamas isn't the end-all, be-all, I think, for Palestinians, right? The Communist Party there, I think, has a lot of great points, and they could probably help them in a lot of ways. I think they've turned to a Hamas out of desperation. And, I don't support Hamas, basically making women, have less rights than men and things like that. So I just wanted to point that out. I know we kind of compared them to the Black Panthers, and I think there is some very stark differences there. But, I did want to point it out that I understand Hamas is not perfect and not the answer to all their problems. But I think the situation they're in is very understandable why people would turn to Hamas, right? And when they're the only ones that are really fighting for them when the whole world is silent. And also just a reminder that, Hamas is pretty much only in the Gaza Strip. And if Israel is truly targeting them, then why are they attacking the West Bank, right? I don't think we even really mentioned that.
No, we didn't.
Distinction.
Thank you.
They have killed people in the West Bank. They've been taking more territory there. So this whole excuse that they're attacking Hamas really doesn't add up if you put it all together. And since we recorded last, there has been a ceasefire, which is great.
Quote unquote.
It happened a lot quicker than I think people expected, and it was really necessary. But the Israelis are still attacking Palestinians in Jerusalem. Right, like they're still tear gassing.
The Israeli military is still going into Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Yeah,
and not just Al-Aqsa, but Jerusalem's a holy city where multiple people worship.
And they also, there's reports saying the police are going to knock in doors and make mass arrests. So the ceasefire, while the bombings will say have stopped, it's not a true ceasefire, right? It's bullshit, and I hope people don't go back to being silent again, because I think it's time that people really speak out. And I think there is a shift in how people are responding to this situation. And
Public opinion has surprised me quite a bit.
It really has. Even a lot of liberals have kind of spoken out. It's still like a both sides kind of thing, but the fact that they're even willing to call out, the Israeli Defense Force for these atrocities, I think is a really big step in the right direction. And when I was in the city on Thursday, there actually was a giant protest in Times Square. And shit was popping off. I think we were trying to catch a train because my girlfriend had to go to work, and we were going through the city.
Y'all came out of the Nintendo store hitting fucking bricks with your heads. Pop! You gotta get back.
Well, we were we just didn't know what was happening. All of a sudden, there was cops fucking everywhere. There's a helicopter in the sky above us. I think there was actually 2 helicopters. There was cop watch, and they were like yelling at cops, and the cops were putting up barricades, and it looked like there was like a police brutality situation going on. People had their phones out and shit, and the cops were getting real nervous there. And we weren't even in Times Square yet. We were like maybe like 2 blocks away. And then we saw like literally.
Oh, you could still probably see it, yeah.
Yeah, there was like a line of fucking cop cars, like 4 blocks deep, like just lined up with their lights on. There are cops on bikes, you name it, fucking everywhere. And then when we were on the train back, like we were trying to figure, like, we didn't even really know it was protests. We're like, what is going on, you know? And we looked it up and found there was a protest going on, and it was both people supporting Israel and people supporting Palestine. But of course, the police were targeting specifically Palestinian supporters. They were arresting them, and almost no Israeli supporters were getting arrested in these videos. There's even a video of a guy who's like, you know, yelling pro-Israel things, and he punches one of the pro-Palestinian guys in the face, and the cops grab the Palestinian guy. It's just like,
seriously?
It's just fucking unreal, man. Like, NYPD fucking sucks. I'm sorry, they're the fucking worst.
No, you don't have to be sorry. They
they really are. They're just like shitheads, man. Like, it was like they're the worst. But yeah, like, I don't know. It's encouraging to see all these protests. There's actually one on Long Island, I think yesterday, and there's going to be another one, I think, in Times Square this coming weekend. So, you know, the people aren't being quiet about it. They're speaking out. And that's really encouraging. And also, the cop putting the barricade up by mistake whacked a bystander with it as they were walking by while we were walking. And he's like, oh, sorry. It was really fucking funny, though, to me. I don't know.
Sorry, I meant to shoot you.
He's like, excuse me. Oh, and he just fucking whacks this guy. And it's, oh, sorry. Meanwhile, there's like, all his police buddies are like brutalizing someone like right next to him. And it's just like, all right, dude. Yeah, fuck
Was it
you.
James, the one nice New York cop?
Yeah, probably, right? He's like, fuck, I'm sorry. Listen, all right? I'm just doing my job, man, all right? Just doing my goddamn job.
He wants me to put up, imagine he sounds like Tom Holland Spider-Man when he's at work. They're like, go put up the barricades, James. And he's like, man, come on. I just wanted to put up the Actually, is that more like Star-Lord? Come on, I'm a cop. You know. But yeah, so thank you very much for clarifying that. And I think, you know, also because because the media covers it the way they covered it, and I kind of fell into that a bit too, just because Hamas is usually used as the justification, you know, I kind of, you know, really wanted to tackle that in the beginning and be like, well, guys, Hamas isn't as bad as you think.
Right.
But also they're not, like you said, not necessarily as great as we made them out to be.
No.
And you know, they are an extremist group adhering to a certain type of faith, and you know, all faiths have some pretty shameful parts of them, including the restricting of women's rights or homophobia, just to name 2 of, you know, many. But that being said, even if, you know, let's say it's an extremist group, or let's say it's just a civilian practicing that faith, you know, they still don't deserve to be killed because of it, you know.
Exactly. And that, you know, we're living in, this is a situation where children are being murdered in the streets, and as long as you are supporting that, then you're in the wrong. Sorry, like you're in the wrong. So until children, you know, can live freely and peacefully, then we have to, you know, speak out against those that are committing these atrocities. And, you know, whatever, Hamas, you know, shot some really inferior rockets at a building. Israeli Defense Forces bombed the Gaza Strip and murdered children, and that's genocide. So that's why we spoke out against it. And you know, again, I just wanted to bring up that I understand Hamas is not, you know, this like perfect solution, but I understand why they're fighting and why people would support them doing it.
Yeah. Also, like, it's not like they're fucking like they're ISIS and shit. Like, you know, like,
yeah, it's
like
not quite the same. Oh. They're actually like voted in. They're politically voted in. You know.
Yes, they have been. Like you said, people turn to them. You hammered them to a point of desperation that they turned to a party they didn't fully understand. Yes, all the Mike Cocaine impersonations today.
Oh man.
I'm excited again. Thanks for talking about Hamas, though. Before we get into our episode proper, I want to say 2 things. One, I once injured my shoulder and trapezius muscles by taking a picture with 2 cosplayers at a convention. It's not that funny. It was a Winter Soldier cosplayer and a Captain America cosplayer, and I was like, oh, pretend like you're about to fight, and I'm holding you back. And these guys could have played them in the movie.
I was gonna say, bro, was it really them? Because what the fuck?
They were huge, and they started like pushing toward each other a bit to make the picture real. And I was pushing back a little, and it fucking like tweaked something. And
you're just like, oh,
guys, this shit wouldn't happen. Everyone, I know it's tough. Try and just stay active a little bit throughout the day, so your body's prepared for like random stupid shit. Or just carrying a bag and getting sniped by a pigeon sitting in a sardine can.
COVID's done my body dirty, and I have an active job, so.
That's true. And also, Christopher Nolan, we'll have an article in the show notes and sources. This is the first of many mentions of it, of course. Actually, I'm not sure how many sources we have. A lot of this will probably be opinion. It's going to be a fun time, folks. Christopher Nolan doesn't really let people sit in chairs on his sets. He says if you can stand, you can work, or like if you're sitting, you're not working. One of those things, you know?
Are you bringing this up because of the Zack Snyder article or no?
No, I'm bringing it up because what we were talking about with Joss Whedon.
Oh, that's so weird because there was an article that just came out that Zack Snyder banned chairs from the set of Army of the Dead.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah, so really quick, Zack Snyder was the director, cinematographer, camera operator, and co-writer of that film. And he was
he's getting too powerful.
He was so involved in it that he was like, we're going to fucking work all day. And all the entire cast, they've never seen a movie that they were working like basically all day. They didn't even have like real lunch breaks. They would bring food to set and like just grab it in between because they, instead of like being like, all right, you're going to sit here and wait for the shot to be set up, Snyder was just fucking going. So like he didn't want anybody sitting around director's chairs. He wanted like constant movement. And so he pushed them like off to the edges of the set. So they were kind of there, but like not really around. And like the cast would just like sit in like broken down cars or like, you know, just pop a squat on the floor if they had to sit for a minute.
But that's so... That's abusive. Like, I'm sorry that his fucking daughter took her own life, and I'm glad that he got to make the Snyder Cut. But long story short, that's just straight up fucking abuse. There's no reason why our movie set, our short set, should have been as good as it was. Like, we fucking treated our actors and our crew like gold.
We did.
Like, you know, I mean, except for the parts where they were on camera because, you know, it was hot in there. But other than that, like, I just don't understand how, as a director, you think you can get the best performance from people who don't have a chance to rest or have a chance to give their best performance. I'm gonna watch the whole movie all the way through and see what these actors look like.
I definitely agree with you because you know you're an actor, so you know better than me. And but like I'm just guessing his mindset was I'm not going to be sitting down, so like we're just going to keep going. You know what I mean? Like I'm assuming
and that enthusiasm is great.
Yeah, and the actors haven't like come out and be like he was abusive, but like. They were just like, it was kind of disappointing that we couldn't just sit down and have a nice lunch break, you know? So it was like, you know, probably would have gone the extra way to just be like, all right, guys, break for lunch at the fucking very least, right?
Yeah, for those of you who don't, and the other thing, too, is these are all at least SAG-AFTRA actors. They're all unionized. Like, there's no way Dave Bautista isn't fucking unionized or Tig Notaro. So, like, why are you... I don't know, but
Dave Bautista also worked for the WWE, so he's pretty used to abuse.
He is pretty used to working a lot and stuff. You know, I guess also because like when it comes to wrestling, there is a lot of of rehearsals that go in before the match. You know, depending on the event. But I will say, for those of you who aren't aware of what it's like on set. For a TV show or for a movie, you know, it really depends, but you're probably spending at least 12 hours, maybe 16 or 20 there. You know, the one we did on our short was fucking inhuman, the amount of time. We almost spent 24 hours on that set. And that's bad enough. A lot of it is hurry up and wait. So, all right, get to set at 6 a.m., make sure that you're dressed and in makeup by 7, and then just wait. You know, wait while we set up the shot, but they want to know that all their actors ready. Go to craft services, get a granola bar, get some lunch when it's available and stuff like that. Like that's how it usually runs. And even then, it's an exhausting day. It's exhausting just being in a place for 16 hours and, you know, being like, all right, let me just be ready to work at any moment. It's like being on call almost. So, no chairs, no breaks. Sorry, that's fucking bullshit. I don't care what type of director you are. You know, I'm sorry, but you know, like we said, the entitlement of, you know, privileged white men goes very, very far, and you know they may not even realize that that's what it is. But for Snyder to be able to be like, all right, you know, I'm excited, so everyone else has to be just as excited and working.
Yeah, I mean,
that's how mistakes get made.
I don't think he meant it maliciously, but it was wrong, you know, and wrong is wrong. So
yeah. he's like a fucking puppy. You know what I mean? Like, he is like, he's just very excited, and it's great that he's.
I mean, like, how many directors are the camera operator and cinematographer and writer, and this guy was like, "This is my fucking movie, let's do it." He was just pumped.
Oh,
he was really
I mean,
excited.
that's actually another thing, and I know that we're not talking about the the film yet, folks, but I do think that this is important. Just like, we have to know about the industry, and we have to know about about what goes on in it at least. But like, I almost worked with a writer, director, actor. So someone who wrote the script for themselves to be the lead, directed it, and like, luckily I backed out of the production. I mean, it's probably going to be on HBO Max next year, and I'm going to be like, oh, should have put my anxiety down and worked on it. But I don't know if any of you are actors out there or are going to work with it. Just be wary of someone who is not, writer, director, fine, but like writer, director, producer, camera operator, actor, blah, blah, blah. And like, the best leader you can find is somebody who knows what they can do and somebody who knows what others can do better. And it's all about delegation. It's not about being a jack of all trades. So,
well, I will say that I did the same thing when I was in high school, but it was obviously high school.
You had $3 to your fucking budget. What were you gonna do?
True.
How many actors did you have? Zack's not an indie director anymore. I'd like to see some indie films he did do if he did.
Right.
Ty, how many new reviews do you think we had this week?
0.
Absolutely correct. You ready to bring in the theme song?
Oh, I'm ready.
Welcome to another episode of the Politipop Podcast, the podcast where we read between the lines of our favorite pop culture media and discuss the social and political themes within. I am your co-host, Mike Booch, a.k.a. Mike O'Kane, and I couldn't think of any other good a.k.a.s to beat. I'm sorry. What do we want to do? We want to do, I'll come up with them in the middle of the episode and throw them out there. Let's just do that. And in my second seat, as always, is my lovely co-host, Ty.
Hey.
All right, cool. Great, AKA. Ty, quick
AKA
question.
Ty, AKA still Ty.
Holy shit, he's good. What do you think the theme song sounds like? I know we haven't done this bit in a while.
Oh, yeah.
Any guesses? Have you listened to it?
Well,
yet?
you've waited so long to ask me. I mean, it's too late. Now I know what it sounds like. It sounds like folk music.
You fucking nailed it, guy. All right, today we're continuing our fake Bat Month special by reviewing
our
the
Bat
Dark
Month
Knight.
Special, and that's what I'm sticking with. It's for us.
Legitimate Bat Month special, and you know what? Last week's episode was very appropriate because we talk about people losing things as children and then vowing to fight the power as they get older and make sure it never happens again.
Holy shit.
Bunch of little Hamases. No, once again, guys, Palestinians are their own people. Just because Hamas is thrown around as a buzzword to constantly justify genocide, doesn't mean that that you necessarily have to equate the two, as the media frequently does,
right.
And as I specifically did last week. But today we are reviewing The Dark Knight. This is the second of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. And, this movie came out in 2008, and it changed my life. Probably until some other life-changing events happened. But The Dark Knight was the first movie I'd ever seen 6 times in the movie theaters. It was the first time I had ever seen my hero lose. It was the first time I'd ever really... I mean, I know that we've read Batman comics and we've seen him go through shit, but seeing it on screen, seeing it acted out, the sounds, the visuals, it's all, it all seemed very real. And thanks in no small part to the vision of Nolan and Ayer, was it Nolan and Goyer on this one? I should know. I know it came out in 2008, but into this vision, which was supposed to be a much more realistic version of the Batman mythos, and they did a great job setting it up with Batman Begins, and then in my opinion, it was Goyer. All right, thank you. And in my opinion, knocked it out of the park with The Dark Knight. I never knew what to expect, and I was so stupid when I was 18. I thought the Joker figured out he was Bruce Wayne, so I had to watch it multiple times in order to realize what the story. I mean, in my defense, there's a lot of nuance to the story, a lot of pieces that are weaving across each other.
True.
But also that one line alone was not enough to... He's like, oh shit, he knows he's Bruce Wayne. Too many comics on my part.
I was really fortunate. My friend wanted to see it in IMAX. Our friend Nick, actually, who was on the podcast in February. And
yes, he helped us read between the lines of Antebellum.
Yes, and he was like, "Yo, let's go see it in IMAX. I'll get the tickets. My dad will drive us," because we were still in high school. And he accidentally...
And nobody wanted to hang out with Cascone, who...
we don't talk about him.
who was the only one of us with a car.
He bought tickets upstate by mistake. In like Westchester or like further or some shit. So... his dad had to drive us like 2 hours to see this fucking movie. And thank God it was so good that even his dad loved it. Because then we were all in a great mood to drive back. And they had to drop me off at work because it took so long to get back. I had to go to work. But yeah, it was a really cool experience. I got to see it in IMAX first time. And it blew my fucking mind, you know. And this was kind of like right around when I just started getting back into comics. A mutual friend of ours, Scott, he had convinced me to buy Batman The Long Halloween right around this time.
Thank you for mentioning it, because I cut him out of the last episode when I was editing. So
yeah, there you go. So yeah, he convinced me to buy Batman The Long Halloween and told me it was one of the greatest things he'd ever read in his fucking life. He's a very intense person, and he was right, because it was one of the greatest things I'd ever read in my life. So I was really into Batman. I was really ready for this movie, and it nailed it. I thought it did a great job. And we're going to talk about that today, and what it means to us, and some of the messages there, and how it holds up all these years later, because it's in 2021. And again, this movie came out in 2008.
I'm actually so excited, just like, I don't know, ramping up into this, that I want to watch The Dark Knight like right now again. Instead of...
I'm actually excited to watch The Dark Knight Rises, and I didn't even like that movie, so that's how good this film is.
Yeah, that is how good Dark Knight was, that it got us excited for The Dark Knight Rises. But before we get there, how about we just go into the plot of the film? Folks, spoiler alert in effect right now. So if you're hearing this and you haven't seen The Dark Knight for whatever reason, please make sure that you go out and watch it, or listen to the podcast as you watch it. We will be ending about halfway through the movie, but hey. Ty, would you be so kind and graceful, or gracious as to give our sweet listeners the plot?
Oh, I will do it. The Dark Knight, when the menace known as the Joker wreaks havoc and chaos on the people of Gotham, Batman must accept one of the greatest psychological and physical tests of his ability to fight injustice.
All right. And was that an IMDb one?
It was.
Now, what's interesting, it's always interesting to see what people put onto the, because there are like, obviously, thank you, Tyler, that was great. But like, you know, this is a great way to get into the plot of the film, because most people will see this film and be like, okay, Joker's the bad guy, Batman's the good guy, let's get into it. But this film really took me, I was taken aback because of the nuance, and especially now going back into it as an adult, because I very much was one of those, the Joker's the bad guy, Batman's the good guy, Batman has a code, so he's the best. And I'm not sure I stand there with just this movie in particular. What are you feeling about that?
Rewatching this time, it's a very different experience, right? I mean, I think my opinion of, let's say, the police, for example, has changed a lot. My opinion of Batman has changed a lot. You know, I think Joker is still a villain. I would never call him a hero. You know, he's vicious and brutal. You know, but he is pointing out the flaws in humanity, and he's showing kind of the dark underbelly of Gotham that all these people want to hide, right? But it's there, and he's just exposing it. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely like a different viewing experience this time around, and my opinions of the characters have changed slightly.
Yeah, mine have changed quite a bit, actually. You know, I remember one of my friends, a little more liberal, God bless his soul, but he's a nice guy. One of my groomsmen, not going to say him by name, but he told me, like, when we were leading up to the election, he was like, remember to, vote for Biden. Don't be Bane or something, or don't be the Joker, or don't be like he said, one of the Dark Knight villains. And that's when it hit me. I was like, Ra's al Ghul was about, restoring balance. The Joker was about, pointing out the flaws in society and saying that we'd be better off in our own hands instead of in the hands of hypocrites. And, Bane kind of continued that and said the people are the ones who have to have the power instead of being put behind bars by these corrupt politicians and law enforcement. You're the ones who have been taken advantage of, and Gotham is yours now. Unfortunately, that was all just a speech, and he was a bitch boy, but we'll get into that in the next movie. But, it's really weird to grow up and start seeing the villains make more sense. And does that make the heroes juvenile? I don't know. I don't know if we can say that necessarily, but...
I think that the ending of The Dark Knight kind of says that in a lot of ways. Right? I mean, not to skip ahead so much, but, when Harvey Dent's on the roof
We can move around, though. We can move around.
He's got Gordon's son, and he's threatening to kill him, and he's like, I told you that your cops were corrupt, and you wouldn't listen. You would not accept it. And Jim Gordon's a really good man, right? And he's a really good cop, and he has been trying to save this city. He's teamed up with Batman, and he's put his literal life on the line.
And he was trying to fight the mob.
Yeah, he was trying to fight the mob. Right. But at the same time, he just wouldn't fucking accept that his cops were bastards, right? So, if
and unfortunately, in trying to fight the mob, he didn't realize that they knew they were coming. Sorry, just throwing a few out in there, too.
Well, it's just all right, so you already know a lot of cops are dirty, and the mob's going to pay them off, and Harvey's telling you, listen, don't trust your fucking guys. And he didn't listen, So in a way, that is on him. But
yes,
but then Batman does bring up a good point. He's like, we knew this could happen. The three of us, we took an oath that we were going to save this city and put our lives on the line. Yeah.
A lot of that's going to happen. I'm sorry.
It's fine. I love it. But yeah, so all three of them knew what was going on. So, I think Harvey, obviously, I wouldn't even call him insane at this point. I think he's just angry. He's obviously physically disabled, right? He's been hurt horribly. The one person he loved is dead. And, I think he's just angry and bitter. And, is he wrong? Yeah. I mean, he obviously shouldn't kill this little kid. But, he does have a good point that, they could have stopped this had they done things, had they listened to him. But, again, they did put their lives on the line. They knew this could happen. So I think all three of them are naive. They didn't really understand what they were getting themselves into, Batman included.
Yeah, but listen, in Harvey's I know you're not saying shit against Harvey because we both agree, I would probably do the same shit. But to come to Harvey's defense in some way, Batman wore a fucking mask.
Right.
What the fuck did he risk? You know what I mean?
Rachel says that, too.
His kind of girlfriend still died. Yeah, what does she say?
She says, to Alfred, what is he doing? Why is he letting Harvey take the fall? And he's like, oh, he's not being the hero. He's doing something more. Gives this fucking speech about how Batman's doing the right thing. And Rachel's like, yeah, well, letting Harvey take the fall for this is not very heroic, is it? And she's right, because at the end of the day, it's Harvey whose life is on the line. It's Harvey whose friends and family are on the line. Like you said, Batman hides behind that mask. And nobody's targeting Bruce Wayne in this film at all. Actually, the only time they ever get near him is at the... at his little fundraiser, and they're not there for him. The only Joker even brings him up once while they're there. So, he's very, very safe under, his cowl and armor, while Harvey is out there time and time again putting himself on the line.
He almost gets shot in the face in his first scene in the movie.
Yep.
When you talk about Harvey, I want to talk about him for a bit, because Harvey is one of the people who, they call him the White Knight of Gotham, right. Which... We've reviewed White Knight and Curse of the White Knight. I don't think that's any mistake that that the titles are similar. Obviously as an antithesis to the Dark Knight, you need something, but he's one of the people who's actually been inspired by Batman.
Right.
And that's kind of that's one of the big points of Batman, is that he's supposed to inspire people to let them know that the power is and always has been, this is quoting Frank Miller kind of, in their hands, in the hands of the common man or woman or two-spirit, in the hands of the common person, anything in between. If you're a fucking working class person, unlike Bruce, that you if you see something wrong with the system, you can take matters into your own hands. And I think Harvey is trying to use the system in order, to beat the system. He's speaking truth to power. We have judges on his side. We have the mayor on his side. We have the police commissioner on his side. And then eventually we also get Gordon on his side too. And he even brings in Batman. Harvey is he's the pinnacle, of what, of what a hero is supposed to be in Gotham and in real life all around the world. We wish all politicians would be so grateful, would be so, so great, so selfless. He even says in that dinner scene that he understands why the Batman is doing what he's doing. And he, he speaks right to Batman. I mean, obviously the writing is what the writing is, but he speaks right to Batman's mentality. He says he can't want to do this forever. Think about that. Nobody wants to resist forever. Nobody wants to fight forever. Spartan soldiers used to have depictions on their shield. I'm not sure if it was Spartan, but it was one of the, Greek warriors, whatever, back in the day. I got this from the movie Never Back Down. But they used to have images on their shields of family and home, because that's what you're fighting for. You're not fighting to fight. You're not fighting for the glory of violence. You're fighting for peace. And I really love I loved Harvey Dent as a character for that, and also because like you said at the end, he said it's not about what he wants, it's about what's fair. He says, you thought we could be decent men in an indecent time. And he says that the only morality in a cruel world is chance. And unfortunately, he's kind of right.
Yeah.
But to an extent, he doesn't even believe it, because, and this is one of my favorite subtleties ever in any film, especially this one, he chooses to flip the coin, now scarred on one side, and he is, thank God we put the spoiler alert out, and he's going to hold Batman accountable, he's going to hold himself accountable, and he's going to hold Gordon accountable, in that order. So he shoots Batman, but before he has a chance to shoot Gordon's son, he puts the gun to his own head. And I was like, shit, Harvey's still in there.
Yeah.
Because Harvey didn't want to do that, but also he's been driven, for lack of a better term, insane, by what happened to him, by the trauma of losing his love and having to fucking hear it, and the trauma of surviving, the guilt, and then also the Joker coming in and be like, hey, buddy, let me tell you something about society, blah, blah, blah. So all those things have culminated to push a good man over the edge. And, it really is a shame. And it's good to see that in more media, because usually we just see Two-Face as Two-Face. We don't really, just like we see Darth Vader as Darth Vader, right? But seeing the downfall, for the fall from grace for that character into the villain they become is always great when it's done well. And I think they did a pretty good job here.
They don't even really go into this much, but that whole moment where he's like, what was that nickname you guys had for me in Internal Affairs, right? And it was Harvey Two-Face. But
yep.
Internal Affairs, their job is to investigate crooked cops or potentially crooked cops.
Everyone's a crooked cop.
Yeah, everyone's a crooked
Gotham.
Cop. and I've watched enough Law and Order to know that Internal Affairs the cops hate them. They think they're scumbags, they're rats, they're turning on the blue family,
They're getting in the way of the police actually doing their jobs.
Yeah, it's a really difficult job to have, and that's a job Harvey did, and obviously he was good at it, good enough to become, the district attorney, and I think he understands crooked cops a lot better than Gordon does. So, when he says that he doesn't trust his people, Gordon should have listened. Because he really...
Well, it's probably because he isn't a cop. He was working at IA, and then he became the DA. But Gordon, who his partner was a crooked cop,
right.
He actually had to pistol whip him in the last movie.
That's right.
Psychotropic hallucinogens notwithstanding, but Gordon should know firsthand. But I think once again, right? We talk about this. We talk about one of our friends. He and I have had a falling out recently. I mean, maybe we're still Facebook friends, because I said all cops are bastards. He said all cops. He is a cop, and I said yes. And, even if you don't want to be, you are a bastard because your job requires you to be. And just being on the inside of it, you cannot make that distinction. I can make the distinction between saying I am, a podcaster and I am me. But there are people who can't make the distinction. They're a cop 24/7 in their heads. And as soon as a cop, cops are attacked in the media, and by attacked, I mean verbally trying to be held accountable. They're like, oh, we all got to step up, blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of that happening in this movie, too, especially in the
that's why when people say Black Lives Matter, because they're born black, and they say Blue Lives Matter, they're not born blue, right? They're not blue people, they're cops, so it doesn't fucking make any sense. They can't separate the goddamn line. But Anyway, we digress.
I love that. I like not being the only one to get pissed during
it's
the movie.
Annoying. It's fucking stupid. The whole Blue Lives shit's stupid.
Did you have any other Harvey stuff?
Yeah, I was just gonna also say there. Typically people will associate obviously the Joker and Batman as having this symbiotic relationship, right? But there's I think it's important to mention that Joker's entire plan kind of hinges on corrupting Gordon. He doesn't, the end all be all isn't beating Batman in fisticuffs, as he says, or, trying to kill, Jim Gordon or blow up those ships. It's really about corrupting the White Knight, the one person that inspires hope and change in the
not
city.
Gordon.
Yeah, Dent. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay, no.
Yeah, he's inspiring hope and change in the city, and so he's trying to corrupt Harvey Dent. And in the end, he almost succeeds, right? I mean, he does kind of corrupt him, but obviously Batman takes the fall for it and is able to cover up for him. But I think again, Harvey Dent is kind of the hope this city needs. He's the person that they look up to that they think can actually make a difference for once in Gotham City. What's that line he says at that big press conference? It's always darkest just before the dawn, but I promise you the dawn is coming. And yes. I think and people believe him.
No more dead cops!
Fuck that guy.
And she goes, you'd rather protect the life of a mass vigilante than of the citizens of Gotham? Once again, I've seen this movie a few times.
Just a few. And I think people do believe him, and when he turns himself in as Batman, it's a huge moment. It's a really huge moment. He's willing to do that and protect the Batman and put his own life on the line.
Also it's interesting that all of these guys know that the system doesn't work too, because they wouldn't be fucking working with Batman in the first place if things worked so worked so well. Yeah. Also last thing I have for Harvey is just that he also is a great representation of what happens when we put all of our faith into one person or one politician, if you will. Right. The ideals that Harvey stood for. Batman specifically says to him, if, everything is undone if they find out that Harvey is a less than stellar guy. Cuomo's still in office, so who knows what would have happened. But, he says your stand against organized crime is the most legitimate ray of light in Gotham in decades.
That fucking Batman voice, man. It's so bad. Not yours.
Oh, yeah.
The one they actually use, because it sounds just like it.
I'm impersonating a bad voice. Yeah, it's terrible. I don't know why they went
He
with
even
that
talks
choice,
to Lucius Fox like that, and Fox knows Bruce Wayne is Batman.
It's so funny. Beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful. Unethical. All right, sorry. Now I want to talk about the Joker and kind of going from the beginning of the movie. I'm wondering, this is a theory, and yes, I was kind of high while I was watching it. But I was wondering, could the Joker be somewhat like the next step in human evolution? Because he says later, he's ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
He's outmaneuvering people because he knows the rules they play by. It's an archaic system of values and practices. And by the way, people, I'm not saying that the Joker is right, but I am saying that this archaic system of practices and values in our own world has continued to prove problematic. We still are a country that uses slave labor. Obviously I believe in justice and I believe in equality and I believe in peace, but as a whole, our country or even our world hasn't really adhered to that. So the system, which is supposed to push those things, hasn't worked, and therefore it doesn't need to be reformed. It needs to be abolished entirely, and a new one needs to be put up in its place. At least that's what the Joker is saying, and a lot of leftists. But he says whatever doesn't kill you makes you stranger. So, I think he's one of those people. There are a lot of theories. I'll throw it in the show notes and sources too. There are a lot of theories as to who the Joker is, where he comes from, because in this movie they do a great job of, going with the Killing Joke thing and not giving you his definite origin. And, there are some theories that maybe he was a soldier, which is how he's able to be so fucking competent in all of these plans, because he says, do I really look like a guy with a plan? And yet all he does is plan this entire fucking movie. That's all he does. But maybe he was one of those people who got blown up in a cruiser in Afghanistan and it wasn't a big deal. And he saw that he was left behind like the rest of his squad mates and was like, well, fuck this. I thought I was fighting for something worthwhile. And here I am being thrown away like a pawn. we also see. I'm just going through my notes. Cut me off at any time, though.
I was just gonna say I don't necessarily agree with that take. Like I know what you're saying about Joker.
Give it. What do you got for me?
But I also think Michael Caine kind of summarized it pretty well. He's like, some men just want to watch the world burn, and I think whatever Joker's past life experiences, whatever shaped him, destroyed the humanity in him to the point where he had nothing left to lose, and he just wants to bring chaos because he doesn't care about anything else. I think the way you're talking about Joker would kind of be more in line with the Joker from that Joaquin Phoenix plays in the film, wanting to bring that change to the world and to the system because it doesn't work. But this Joker, we really don't know what's real and what's not with him. He gives multiple backstories that are really sad but contradict each other. And then, he obviously understands the system, but I don't necessarily think he wants to make it a better world. Or better system. He just wants to point out the flaws in it. He wants to literally get inside the heads of people. And I think he's so intrigued by Batman. He says, kill you? I don't want to kill you. You complete me, because he really enjoys this cat and mouse game he has with him. And, corrupting Harvey Dent, who is trying to do right, is his end-all be-all in this film. And he even says to Batman at the end, I think we're destined to do this forever. An immovable object meets, unstoppable force.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any real rhyme or reason to the Joker's actions. He doesn't think the way other people think, and he can't be broken or defeated the same way because he has literally nothing to lose. The way, how in Batman Begins, Bruce Wayne thought he had nothing to lose, but he did. Joker doesn't. There's nothing he cares about. He's kind of, I guess if he cares about anything, it's Batman, right? So,
I mean, so yeah, I mean, I completely see how you would see that, and I think you're wrong. No, I do.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, you're right in the fact that like the Joker isn't trying to build anything back up. That's definitely true. And I think my problem is that I continue to conflate between talking about the story of the movie and talking about like IRL and stuff. But I definitely agree with that. I don't think he wants to bring anything up. But also I think that Alfred and Bruce don't know what the fuck they're talking about. From Batman's inception, not to call out another Nolan flick, but he has always said criminals are a superstitious and cowardly lot.
Yeah.
And that's why he became, that's part of why he became a bat in the original origins. And, he says that in this movie. Well, not exactly, but he says criminals aren't complicated, Alfred. We just have to figure out what he wants. And that's when Alfred tells him some men don't want anything. Some men just want to watch the world burn. And, maybe he does want, I think he wants to raise, I don't know. Like I'm caught in between. I don't believe that he's just there for chaos, because if so, he would do all of the chaotic supervillain stuff and just cause as much destruction as possible. But
his thing isn't destruction. His thing is corrupting people.
It's corruption, not destruction, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
He's destroying people's minds and souls instead of destroying property. Okay.
The property happens as part of that plan, but his ultimate goals are corrupt Harvey Dent. Let's see if we can get these people on the ships to blow each other up and see who does it first. Let me manipulate people and show them that
they're all fucking hypocrites.
Yeah, even with the gangsters, like, oh, it's all about money with you. He's even showing them their flaws. Like, all you care about is money. So he burns all the money, right? Like he doesn't actually. I don't think necessarily he wants to destroy buildings and stuff, but he wants to destroy the people that live in this society and show them, what he sees, I think, in the world. And I do agree that Bruce definitely does not understand it.
He was like,
Bruce is
the first time
crazy.
He's like, I stole a peach once. I know what criminals think. All right, bro.
I stole from myself. A fucking bat and goes around beating people. But I think Alfred is a lot more grounded than Bruce. I think
Alfred has seen some shit. Yeah,
he has. He's served in the military. I don't know if they bring it up in the films, but typically that's his backstory. He's served the Waynes. He's lived in Gotham while Bruce was off learning how to be a ninja. This whole time. So he's seen the city. He's seen these children raised. I think he does understand the world a little better than Bruce, and I think that's why Bruce kind of needs him in a lot of ways, right? To kind of help him stay true to who he is.
Michael Caine has addressed it in interviews saying that, like, that's why Alfred is so good at patching up Bruce, because he was a military medic in this specific, story. But yeah, like you said in the comics, he's been, MI6, also a theater guy.
Yeah.
I also want to note how, we see at the beginning Batman is sharing his resources with the police department. He's using irradiated bills so that way they can track bank robberies and stuff. Like we said in the White Knight episodes, sharing resources is important, but also militarizing the police is not the way to go about it. But once again, it's just in this story, we're seeing the police go after actual criminals. That's the weird part. We're seeing them go after the mob, who are continually breeding. I mean, maybe, but they're bleeding Gotham dry. They are so cocky. Batman's been the only one to put them in their place a little bit. And even then, I think I was going to wait a little bit, but let me go to it now. I think that's why the Joker loves Batman so much also. I think that Batman proves that the Joker's right. He proves that, every time he puts on that cape and cowl and instead of putting on a badge, he's proving the Joker right. He's saying that we have to take matters into our own hands. The system doesn't work. And being a vigilante, at least in the Joker's mind, is probably the next logical step for survival.
Yep.
And, to me, it just reminds me of kind of trying to move somebody further left. You see their potential and you really don't want to fight with them. You're like, listen, you have a really great ground as a liberal or whatever. For me, mostly it's conservatives. For me, mostly I see conservatives who are like, we fucking hate the government. We think that the working classes are better, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking with you on all that, except y'all are racist and you believe everything that you're fucking told. So when Joker says, I don't want to kill you, what would I do without you? I'm like, fuck. I felt this frustration, come on, you're almost there. Come on, just move left of this. I know the Joker's philosophy isn't necessarily a leftist philosophy, but,
I want to make that, I feel like we should make
his Joker, he says introduce a little anarchy, but I don't even think he's an anarchist. No. And I was learning a little bit about anarchy before this, not enough to speak on it here, but I'll put it in the show notes and sources so anyone can view that and make their own distinction. Do you think Joker is a true anarchist? Do you think he just used the term anarchy?
Yeah.
So
I definitely wouldn't say Joker's a leftist because I don't think he supports Medicare for all and a Green New Deal. I think he just wants to expose the corruption in the system. And I do agree though that you're right. Every time Batman puts on the cowl, he does prove Joker right, and that's why I think at the end, in order to defeat Joker, he has to give up being Batman. He has to take the fall, become the villain, and as we'll see in the next film, he has to go into hiding, and that is the only way to really stop Joker's plan from coming to fruition, right? And preserve the kind of Harvey Dent's role as the White Knight of Gotham.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain is literally tattooed on my right shoulder. And, we don't necessarily have the time to go into every single idea of what this could mean, what it meant to me. But I really want to talk about what it means, not just for this film, but for, let's take politicians, right? They campaign on all these amazing promises and that they will be a hero. And then sure enough, after they take office, they become a villain, they probably were villains before they took office, but how often is CNN going to tell us that? It also reminds me, though, of revolutionaries. When we talk about, they referenced Caesar earlier and said that he was the one given the power to protect the city in kind of an all or nothing box moment to give an homage to Rodriguez there. But he never gave up that power and became the villain. Now, I don't know too much about about a lot of communist revolutionaries or leftist revolutionaries around the world. I do have to learn more before I speak on them. But from what I do understand, there's always a lot of critiques of the methods in which they've used, the quote unquote violent methods or bloody methods in order to topple the, the powers that be. And then also some of them become assholes themselves in order to maintain that power. So that kind of you either die a Fred Hampton or you live long enough to see yourself become, I don't know. Was Mao Zedong bad? Everyone says he was bad. I actually don't know enough about him.
Become
he was
Obama.
A bad guy. I don't know. You either die Fred Hampton or live long enough to see yourself become Obama, right? Both from the same streets, both from the same, the same city. God, I don't know. That was just depressing, just saying.
I know.
But yeah, so what else do we have here? I think there's also a metaphor to terrorism, definitely the war on terror. Like the Joker is playing dirty. He is a literal terrorist. He is killing civilians, not just cops. So they have to play dirty to fight him. Batman ends up doing his own Patriot Act and rigging the entire city's mobile network to match up with a sonar tech that Fox had created. And he's like, listen, I gotta find the bad guy, but he also says he'll shut it down after, which is a stark difference between, let's say, the United States and Batman in this film. I'm not the only one to have made these comparisons, but how do you feel about that? The ethics of what Batman had to do in order to find the Joker. World's greatest detective, by the way, just constantly asking people where other people are. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, the sonar device you're talking about, right? He has Fox.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is very similar to like the Patriot Act, right? Like the idea that for your protection, they're going to listen into every conversation you have and keep tabs on all your, social media and all your devices to make sure they can stop any terrorism from happening. But realistically, maybe that, at least in Batman's case, the intention is to be used for good, but it can be easily used for wrong, right? And it almost becomes like a Minority Report situation where you're now going after people before they even commit the crime, right? And it's like, how can you abuse somebody? How can you listen in their conversations? How can you use that to take down people? So I think Fox is absolutely right when he says, this is wrong, and he even says that he's going to resign if that device is going to stay, with the Waynes, and he just does not approve it at all. And I agree with him. I think it is totally wrong. In this situation, I guess they use it for good, so it does work out. But right,
well, he gives the power to Fox to destroy the machine,
which is great.
And I think that's great. Like, there's a difference between, you know what? I will do it. I'm not speaking for Ty. I'm speaking for myself here. I'm drawing a last minute comparison, but we were talking about Israel last week, right? Originally, the Arab nations did start a war against them. When the UN decided to still, it was kind of justified. But somehow this fledgling nation with nothing but the support of the entire world managed to defeat, a few Arab nations. But that should be it, right? Like, that should be where it ends. But no, they've continued to grow and continued to, increase military occupation and presence and stuff like that. And it's, it's very much like the U.S. has done. We've made the comparison between the two before. But I have a new friend. This is a shout out to you. But she put it so well for me, and I'd never heard this before. I'm sure it's not new, but it was new to me, that capitalism, its entire goal is to grow endlessly. That is the ideology of a cancer cell.
Yeah.
Grow endlessly. Consume everything you can. Now, we're not necessarily critiquing capitalism in this episode in particular, but I do think that, seeing Batman, like, if people could be more like Batman in real life, as in like, all right, we won a war, let's denuclearize or something like that. Like, we did this, let's get rid of the weapons, we don't need them anymore. Like, all right, we got the country. It's obviously they never even had to fight for the United States in the first place. But so that's just my personal thing. Like, if every weapon could just be given up after it was used, it would be it's a shame weapons even are made in the first place, but that would be a different story. But obviously we have to like Batman, so we can't see him continuing to monitor. He'd be like, hey, Fox, Mr. Wayne, it's 3 a.m. These people are having phone sex. It's hot. I could have done it with Rachel. All right. I thought Harvey was about to bang both Rachel and the prima ballerina for the Moscow Ballet at that dinner. Harvey has mad swag. For those of you who were curious, I actually did meet Michael Jai White once at a martial arts convention. He was the one who played Gamble and got killed by the Joker. He was running a martial arts seminar in which I was one of the few people who couldn't do the technique he was teaching. And upon trying to tell me several times, he just said, I guess you just can't do it, and walked away.
Oh, damn, really?
Yes, Michael Jai White, he cucked me in front of a bunch of martial artists, and dude, you should have seen, I was warming up for the seminar before he got there. I'm doing cartwheels. Now, like, I'm fat here. I'm like probably 280 pounds. I mean, I know they're muscular people, but the way I hold it, I was fat. But I'm like doing cartwheels, jumping kicks, spinning kicks, stretching out, getting ready. And this one simple maneuver I couldn't do, and it proved that I was actually the less competent ninja in comparison to the competent ninja that Bruce Wayne is.
That's wild.
Of course, we see wealthy criminals who are able to exploit the banks and dodge the cops. But it seems to be the ones who operate independently who threaten them. The Joker and Batman are really the big threats to the mob. I mean, it's kind of a story thing, but also it just goes into this continued narrative that, yeah, like the system is allowing these people to exploit it. But those who operate outside, they can kind of do whatever they want to. The difference is that for Batman, he does have a code. And I think that is why we are on his side. That, he'll go to China and extradite Lau, but he won't level the whole fucking building of Lau's security investments to do it. Actually, no, he doesn't. That was another building I'm thinking of, the Pruitt building at the end that he collapses with explosives.
I did want to also point out that I thought Maggie Gyllenhaal gave a much better performance as Rachel in this film. I just think she comes off
Katie Holmes.
a lot stronger and more competent and just tougher, as Rachel in this film. She even confronts the Joker when everyone else is terrified, and she just comes off as a very powerful woman who's willing to put her life on the line in the film. And I thought she did a really good job with the performance. And obviously, it sucks she died, but I thought she was good in it.
Sucks that the character died. I think Maggie Gyllenhaal is still doing all right.
Oh shit, is she really? I thought she was method acting the fuck out of that scene.
Maggie Day-Lewis.
And my last two notes would just be that, that whole scenario with the two ships, right, trying to blow each other up. And I think that the guy on the one ship, who's just like regular civilians, let's say, he says about, I guess it's all the people from the prison on the other ship. He mentions that, they made the decision to steal and murder or something along those lines,
Yeah, so why should we have to pay?
Right. And then, he's trying to convince everyone that they should kill them. And one of the prisoners on the other ship, he's like, give me the remote, I'll do what you should have done 10 minutes ago. And he throws it out the window. And, I think we've spoken about it on the podcast before, but, just because you're in prison or you've been jailed or arrested doesn't mean you're a bad person or even
inhuman.
Yeah. People make mistakes. People are put in impossible situations. People are targeted by police. People are, arrested and they shouldn't be, so there's so many reasons why one might be in prison, and to think that they should die just because of that, it's pretty fucked up. But I'm glad no one kind of went into that and even had the prisoner be the one to make the right decision. I thought that was a cool little moment there. And I think, I really approved of that. And lastly, this was actually one of Heath Ledger's last two films, right? He actually passed away the same year this movie was released. I think he won an Academy Award for it. And his performance was ridiculously good, right? He was only 28 years old when he passed away.
Get the fuck out of here. I'm older than Heath Ledger was?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh my gosh.
That's wild, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And
that was incredible.
Yeah. He's really great. And it started the great debate of who's the best Joker, right? Was it Jack Nicholson from 1989 Batman? Was it Heath Ledger? Some people even will say Mark Hamill as the animated series Joker. And I think they're all great in their own ways, but Heath Ledger's performance is really incredible. He really method acted the fuck out of this and totally transformed himself. If you've seen any of his other films, such as,
A Knight's Tale,
10 Things I Hate About You, he's kind of like a pretty boy actor, and he really started to make a name for himself with Brokeback Mountain, and then he did The Dark Knight, and unfortunately, he did pass that year. He also released another movie called like The Imaginarium, Dr. Parnassus or something like that.
Mr. Megorium. Oh no, yeah, it wasn't Mr. I always think it's Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium, and it's never Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium.
But I think that's pretty amazing that he was able to give this performance, and it's sad that he passed away right afterwards. But quite the performance to rewatch, and I think it holds up very well. I think in general this film holds up really well. I think its themes in some ways are just as important today, if not more so, than they were in 2008. So
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of back the blue sentiment in this movie, too. You had the guy, being like, listen, just no more dead cops. Turn Batman in, regardless of the fact that the Batman is the only one who can stop the Joker, which is what Harvey's trying to tell everybody. There's this constant, and it's happening today, right? There's always this like, oh, if a cop dies, that means that we can't criticize the cops ever. And, it's just difficult to speak reason to people. And, I could feel Harvey's frustration in trying to do that. And, we see that there is a lot of that sentiment too. That the one guy gets put in the jail cell and he goes, "Oh, I'm in pain," and the cop goes, "You're a cop killer. You're lucky to be feeling anything below the neck."
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of
Meanwhile, Gordon, when they're all like up Joker's ass, he's like, "Listen, I don't want anything for his mob lawyer to use." Okay, so where is it? Like, where the fuck do you? I mean,
well, even with Joker, when he's in that cell and he's talking about like, oh, how many of your friends did I kill? That one cop, and he's like 6, and he's like, oh, you want to know which ones are cowards? And the guy, he's gonna beat him up, right? And listen,
it's so easy to goad him into it.
Yep.
And once again, breaking the law. I mean, Batman broke the law before, and so did Gordon, letting him do that. Sorry, but he goads him into attacking him. Last couple notes I have. There are a few more on the show notes and sources. So, folks, check them out. It's going to be a fun time. Most of them are just notes on the movie, not really on the themes. But Joker does call Gordon out, and he says, that, it doesn't make you something. I don't remember exactly the word he says. To know how truly alone you really are. Because he is the only good cop on the force. Wirtz and Ramirez, both ended up getting, Rachel killed and Harvey deformed. Rachel pulled that same shit again, telling Bruce she loved him in a note, but claiming he needs to be Batman so she can't be with him. I think he was ready to stop being Batman.
Yeah, she claims that he can never give it up.
He was like, no, I was literally about to 10 minutes ago.
Because at the press conference, he wouldn't do it. But it's like, all right, they're trying to get the fucking Joker, and then he was going to stop being Batman. And he does. Technically,
he stops being Batman for 8 years. But that speaks to me, I don't think the day will come where you no longer need Batman. Right. Talking about the coping mechanisms of traumatized individuals. I had one last thing. Oh, it was great. Obviously, we also see the cops. They go into the Pruitt building, one of my favorite scenes in any cinema. Then their first thing is that they're going to shoot all the people who have guns and who are wearing masks. But it turns out that those are actually the hostages. And, Thank God for Batman, who was able to get there and beat the shit out of both the henchmen and the cops and save the clowns at the same time.
Right.
Guys, great Batman movie, because he does shit like this in the comics all the time. He does impossible stuff, and they really made it look doable in here. And you could tell he was out of breath by the end of this shit. This city just showed you it's full of people ready to believe in good.
Yeah, his fighting ninja skills weren't quite as sharp in this film, I feel like. So
I mean, I will say that as a martial artist, it is difficult, even if you're fighting people who don't know how to fight, to just take on multiple enemies. The Rottweiler's coming at him. I think he actually threw the and like he's getting stabbed and hit with a crowbar and shit. Like, you'd like to think, everything he learned could help him, but like some shit, you just get your fucking ass kicked no matter how competent of a ninja you are. Last thing I want to talk about for real is just the ferry scenario that you already pointed it out. This scenario posits the idea that people are actually good. Like, they're naturally good and they're naturally selfless. And, I was talking about this with someone recently that, like, it kind of is just the society around us that makes us who we are. Like, if we didn't have to constantly step on each other's necks to get ahead in this world, or, to pay our rent even, would we be more likely to help others if we were provided for ourselves? I think that the answer is yes. Communism requires, in order to believe in it, you have to believe that people are naturally good and people are naturally selfless. And, even just the evolution of humanity required us to be able to trust one another. So, and being able to be a group with each other and sit around the fire and protect each other and hunt for each other and with each other. And, I think it is there. And in the ferry scenario, I think they would have fucking pulled the key, no doubt. I'm surprised it didn't happen, but the movie's supposed to give us a good feeling, I guess. But they're forced to vote, and they're voting for something terrible, which is just like what we have to do every election cycle. And it's interesting that when faced with the humanity of those less fortunate, they didn't necessarily believe that they had the right to decide another person's fate. And I really appreciated that. It was it was kind of like uplifting in such a grim film. there's a lot of other stuff in the film, but that in particular, I was like, I'm for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but but with that being said, folks, I think we are ready to sign off. If you haven't seen The Dark Knight, definitely watch it. We could talk for 3 hours about this film. It is, like I said, it's my favorite film. One of yours, I assume, right?
Yeah, it's one.
And okay, there you go. So that's
even
good.
My girlfriend who doesn't like superhero movies loves this fucking movie. So that's how good it is.
Hey, there you go. Because she can take it. Because she's not a hero.
That's right. Just you gotta endure. All right, that's all you gotta do.
Endure, Master Wayne. But yes, so for those of you who are interested in letting us know your thoughts, you can find us on Twitter at PolitiPopPod, Instagram, PolitiPopPodcast, email us at politipoppodcast@gmail.com, search us up on YouTube. You can find our show notes and sources at politipoppodcast.wordpress.com. And as always, special thanks to all of you sexy listeners out there. And for those of you who think you're not, you are. Unless you're not an adult, in which case, your intellect is fucking awesome.
There you go.
But thanks to all of you and to Antonia Chava for logo design. For the Politipop. Oh, by the way, next week we're going to be watching The Dark Knight Rises. I kind of said that already.
We're going to finish up this trilogy in style with a movie that we have feelings about.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Look forward to it, guys. It's going to be great.
But yeah, for the Politipop podcast, I have been Mike Booch.
I have been Ty.
Remember, no matter what you're watching, what you're reading, what you're listening to, never stop thinking, never stop learning, and always remember to read between the lines.
And scene.